you can't separate culture from society. And for instance, I invite you to have a look also at the Agora programs, which will evolve around democracy. So democracy, certainly disinformation, certainly new technologies, certainly society. So that would be the first element. I understand there is a digital part which is going to be still a standalone. So yes, I can see that it will be, as it was, also treated horizontally and imagine in many programs.
We see that the audience is really interested in this public support part of the innovation and technology, and Luke has mentioned the public procurement in this context. And we do know that the governments tend to play a little bit safe here, right? With the requirements for the public procurement, we always are looking for the cheapest, the most scalable solution initially, right? But that's not what we are aiming for. So my question to Luke or to our other speakers would be, how can we ensure that there is this, that the government or the public bodies support socially courageous innovations, not just scalable, not just cheap, but really socially courageous?
Well, there have already been attempts in the past few years to mobilize the public procurement instrument, but they've had some success. The Commission had a lead market initiative, which was at least partially successful. But in reality, we need a stronger and more sustained effort to change effectively the culture and the capabilities of those involved in the process. Both those at the top of the process, who you could say commission research, commission products or processes, those who want them, and those who work at the technical end of actual procurement. Procurement legislation has been made more innovation friendly, and at the moment there is work going on to make it more so at European level and also for us in the UK. The key things that have been moved and need to be moved even more are first of all, what's called MEET, an acronym for Most Economically Advantageous Tender. So you don't buy the cheapest, you buy the one which is going to give you the best results over time, taking factors into place. We already have green procurement. We can bring sustainability criteria into it. It would be really helpful if innovation became a clear criterion, that the act of procurement gave you a better basis for future innovation as well. Beyond that, there are all kinds of things around that, encouraging more interaction between the buyers and the suppliers at an early stage to form a common understanding of future directions, and more flexible processes, better access for small and medium-sized enterprises. It's a long list. It's quite well understood, but it just needs to be done, I think.
Thank you. Another question from, a whole lot of that. Yash, you have some work to do.
I have to do my steps today.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Monika Hitson. I am an educator in international school, and my question is from my perspective. All of you mention systemic changes and how the emergence of the system versus parts is very important. My question is, how do you see the part of education in changing, let's say, environmental value systems of individuals in building these systemic changes?
Michal, and maybe, is there a place for business to support education in the process as well?
Yeah, I can take this one.
I think you touched on super important topic because also reflecting a little bit on what have been said in a while ago. Speaking of place for creativity, speaking of the metrics that assess the change on systemic level. I think what we need in the leadership, we need people who have this, who are conscious of these challenges, right? And this starts with education. This starts with some bottom-up initiatives. This starts also with conferences like this one, where we talk about this interesting topic and very valuable topic. Because that's also. Let me give you an example from my field. I was setting up a department of UX designers when there were no UX designers in our unit. And then I was setting up this innovation lab when there was no innovation lab within the Polish unit of Capgemini, and it's super difficult to find a way for something new if the leaders have never saw this as a need because it was never there. So, and we have been somehow operating and working towards our goals without these specific new skills, right? So my lesson is. Educating and promoting, talking loudly about the topics which are of a value of us, so the leaders finally understand that they indeed have a value. But it's also super difficult, specifically if we look at policymakers who are very often for specific period of time on their position, and they tend to look at outputs that are visible short term because they have to prove their value in the specific position. So it's more difficult to look at a longer term impact, which can appear over time, 10 years, over a generation later, right? So maybe it's not directly answering the question, but what I wanted to say is I see a huge potential in the right education, so we educate leaders who have this consciousness to make right decisions once they are there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Hi. I'm Jennifer Casanjana Harper. I'm from Malta. I'm from Scienza Malta. And I was very struck by a couple of things in the presentation, in the presentations and the talks. And one of them was I really liked how you struck out KPIs and you put or impact indicator and had human impact indicators. And I thought that was very something which we really need to give a lot of thought to, how to bring about that change at maybe EU level and national level. Also, the social innovation ecosystem from Luke, and I think also from Joanna, you were talking about the programs, big changes in how the programs are being kind of organized, like the competitiveness fund, for example. I think there's a lot going on as well from the legislation point of view with the ERA Act and the European Research Area Act and the Innovation Act as well, which is something which is coming further down the line. And I'm just wondering how one could bring about changes in terms of the legislation at EU level, because I think this has a lot of important triggers all the way down to national and local level, and there's also things which can be maybe more simple in a way, maybe not so simple, I don't know. I work a lot in the area of gender as well, gender and research and innovation, and the introduction of the GEPs, the gender equality plans, has been very important, and also the SHE figures. They provide a lot of important statistics, but how can we turn them more into policy triggers as well? And the whole gender area is now going in much more into inclusivity as well, and how can you really improve things at societal level by improving, for example, the work-life balance, the research environment, keeping the research environment safe. So I'm just wondering how we can actually move from diagnosing the issues that there are, the challenges, into actually bringing about change. You know, how can we actually, you know, get this new, get a shift in thinking, also in the legislation at EU level. And just a final word about the, somebody asked a question about the UNITE project. I'm actually reviewing European University Alliance ongoing projects at the moment, and you are absolutely right. You have to give very focused attention to the KPIs. These are really, really important. And I would say my advice would be there are alliances out there that are developing these in a very strong way. So it could be useful to go back to the project officer and just say, point us in the direction of the alliances that are already developing this in a very interesting way. And so you can maybe connect to them. I cannot tell you who to connect to because I can't, but you could go down that way and get the information you need. I hope this is helpful.
Thank you. That was a complicated question of how to make better policies, right? To put it short. But if I may add here as well, the people who shared with us today their experience, they lived through this whole innovation transition. They are still living through the innovation transition, the green, digital transition, digital trust, whatnot. In the audience, we have people who are born in the digital age, right? They are digitally native. Do we feel that we are successful in bringing them to the discussion and bringing them to the process of shaping the metrics, defining policies, identifying the social impact? We thank you for bringing UNITE once again. The impact, all of those alliances should have the students in mind first, because they are one of the key target groups there. Are we successful in putting the metrics like, I don't know, quality of student life as one of the impacts of such projects? So how do we make better policies, and how do we include those digital native people to the process?
Okay, I can maybe start. So first of all, everything is about participation. The consultative processes, the possibilities of cooperation, the possibilities of participating in important legislative processes, in policy initiatives, the work programs which are agreed by people you vote for nationally. This is still underused. This is still severely underused. I think Poland is one of the examples where there are not very many scientists registered in the experts databases, so not very many Polish scientists go and evaluate proposals under Horizon Europe. That's first practical element. Not very many Polish interest groups, be those, you know, from students to industry, participate in consultations on every single legislative and non-legislative EU act. And this is a work that no one is going to do for you. And after 20 years of EU membership, 22 I think this year, and in a couple of weeks, I think that every country which joined those 2 decades ago should look at itself in an open one and say, do we use the opportunity which we're given now, given that there is such an organism? to participate more broadly, more boldly, more smartly also. Because there are very, very many fora where Polish presence is still very, very limited, and we observe it in Brussels and Luxembourg. So without these grassroots initiatives, grassroots approaches, then indeed you may find yourself being on the receiving end of decisions, and this is not how the international effort is structured. So, and as said, compared to the EFTA states, for instance, or all countries which cooperate as non-members, you have the opportunity to co-create the proposals, the work programs, the legislation, and you should use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Look, does the University of Manchester takes into account the quality of students' life? Are you successful in that?
Well, it is a high priority. A large amount of thought and effort goes into it. I mean, we do have, of course, student surveys, both internal and national ones, but I would say those are a blunt instrument. It's much more important to have strong interaction, and especially if you like to reach the grassroots of students rather than maybe a small minority who are more politically minded. So a deep infrastructure of student representatives is a great strength, and that's a voice that always needs to be listened to. Yeah.
Thank you. And I would suggest we wrap up at this point. I have one quick question to all of our panelists. Imagine that we meet here again in 2036, in 10 years, or about so. We will celebrate another anniversary of the Politechnika Wrocławska, and we would probably bring back the discussion around innovation. So in 10 years, what is the one problem you hope that innovation has finally solved for good? Michał. Anything related to AI agents?
So the question is, what is the problem that I hope the innovation would solve? I think reflecting back at what has been said today, I really believe that innovation and AI as enabler is such a powerful tool to process huge amounts of data that it would help us to sort of simulate the future, to assess the social impact of technology. Yeah, so as we mentioned, long term is hard to measure. It's hard to make some assumptions, right? Because we always have to assume if we talk about future. But having like super large models who could take into account all possible aspects, and they could say like, if you deliver this, then that and that will be impacted in this and that way. I think that would be super helpful, and that would help us to make decisions like, should we introduce it or we shouldn't?
Okay, thank you, Jana.
I would like to come back to the question from the lady from the international school. I think education, schools are a very important area for innovation to look at, because if you imagine how the, let's say, surgeon, the operating theater looked like 100 years ago, and now it's completely different. But the innovation in school process is very, how to put it, heterogeneous across, let's say, from our perspective, from member states. So there are some which maybe take a bit better advantage of the opportunities and mindsets of young people in their most formative years. Yes, so from being a small child to the 18-year-old who can then choose their life and to implement the way the society has changed into the school systems. And I think that if we get this done in 10 years, that would be really great. Thank you.
Thank you. And Luc?
Well, the one I hope will be solved is that of population health, that your health will be much less dependent on where you were born, what jobs your parents had, or anything like that, that we are able to use our sort of data-driven approaches to create a much more sensitive healthcare pathway for all. But I don't think it will be done in 10 years. The one I think will be heavily advanced in 10 years will be the energy transition. I think we've reached a tipping point, and we will see a very different energy profile in that period.
Good. Thank you. Let's still hope for the best. Thank you to our incredible panelists. Thank you to our very curious audience. This discussion doesn't end here. We are now ready for a break, which will take place in H15. This is the building right across the street. So please feel free to move there and continue with the rest of the plan for today. We do have, do we? Yeah. We do have something interesting planned. Another session will be, so we have 2 more plenary keynotes, right?
Maybe I
Yeah,
can, yeah?
please,
Sorry.
go ahead, take over.
So thank you once again. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you for everybody for joining us. But let's please give a round of applause to all the speakers and the moderator. Thank you. Great, so now currently there will be 2 things happening. One, those who are part of the main conference, the closed thematic sessions, those who have registered, they have a badge which calls speaker or moderator or conference attendee. So we go to H14, so I will take you there. And for those who are attending the keynote panels, so the next, we have a competition in the afternoon, which is called Craft 180, where there will be masters and PhD students who will be sharing in 3 minutes. Each of them will have 3 minutes to share what is the societal impact of their student projects that they have done during their whole career so far of their education. So I invite you to join, or we invite you to join. And tomorrow in the morning, again, we will have a keynote panel just like this, where we have one of our keynote speakers present right now. Jennifer would be there. And we will be talking about how to take science to society to create societal impact. And then later on, we have the final keynote panel, which is on responsible innovation and technology. So I invite you all. It's open and free for everybody, so please join us. Please invite your friends. As you see, we have a lot of seats. We have 500 registrations, but you all made it, so we are really happy that you joined us. Thank you, and I invite you all for a quick group photograph, and then we go to the next part. Please, join us. We have Krzysztof on the top floor waiting for us for the top view.